Hello everybody. Today I'm going to briefly talk about the different kind of biases that we encounter in our daily life. And it's very important to be aware of these as they impact our personal life, our work life. Even for students, I have seen these kind of biases impact their preparation for exams, especially reading comprehension, data interpretation, and such cases. So it's very important to be aware of them. I believe there are about 14 different kind of biases that we have learned about, and I would like to talk about five of these, which I feel are pretty important for all of us to know. The first one is confirmation bias. This type of bias refers to the tendency to seek information that supports something that you already believe. And it's essentially uh, it's a situation where we are trying to find out information subconsciously that confirms our beliefs rather than trying to understand a piece of information in its original way. We are trying to only find information that essentially confirms what we already know. So it's very important to be aware of this one, as it may impact our understanding of the information we are reading or we are listening or communicating. So the second type of bias I would say is called selection bias. This is a fairly simple one to understand. You must have seen, let's say, when we buy a certain kind of uh, it's essentially about noticing things more when something that has happened to us. We start noticing that more in our day-to-day life. For example, let's say we buy a certain kind of car or a certain kind of shoes. We will start noticing other people having the same model of car. So it seems like people have recently started buying the same car that I have, and it actually has started happening to me since I got my car last year. So this one is fairly simple to understand. Now, this third one is anchoring bias, which is something I learned about today. Anchoring bias uh, essentially is when we are trying to when we tend to rather we when we tend to rely too much on or notice too much or rather retain or remember the first piece of information that we received and base all our subsequent judgments or opinions on the first piece of information rather than trying to evaluate all the information we have as a whole. We tend to focus on just the first piece of information that we were given and start evaluating that in reference to the first, evaluating everything else in respect with respect to the first piece of information. So it's very important to be aware of that, as this bias will may lead to this bias may lead uh, wrong judgments or wrong inferences as well. So so far we have learned about these three kind of biases, uh, and the fourth one, which we might have come across already, it's Dunning-Kruger effect. So essentially, it it's it's our tendency to think of ourselves as very as think of ourselves more confident or more knowledgeable when we know very little about something. We tend to not understand the real complexity of certain subject or certain topic or certain skill. uh, we don't understand the real complexity, and we think everything is simple, and we are very confident that we know a lot about something. It has happened to me. If I see about when I knew very little about 20 years back about one or two different uh, topics or technologies or skill sets, I thought of myself, I was very confident about myself, and always used to think I'm the best, or I know a lot. But as I gained more and more experience, interacted with more people, learned different schools of thought, learned about different ways of doing the same thing, I learned that hey, whatever, pretty much all I knew may not be correct in all the situations and all the context, and I used to think that hey, this is the best way, right? So that's Dunning-Kruger effect, where you tend to know little but are very confident about yourself that you know a lot, and you tend to simplify. You tend to think that pretty much everything you know is very simple, and you know everything about it. So we this also, the Dunning-Kruger effect also leads to us not trying to dive deep into information, or not being more curious.